you'll listen to me.
What do you get when you guzzle down sweets?
Eating as much as an elephant eats.
What are you at, getting terribly fat?
What do you think will come of that? I don't like the look of it.
Hi, everybody. This is Dr. Ed Park, and I want to welcome everybody to the webinar. It's going to be a very interesting one. Every week I learn so much, and I learned a lot this week, and I hope to impart some of that and share some ideas and get some great testimonials also. So let's get started. All right. This is Dr. Ed Park from Recharge Biomedical, and our topic is obesity and diet. Just as an overview, I want to kind of show that conventional wisdom about nutrition, common sense, is often incorrect. And I believe that aging causes obesity via the one really true disease, which is replicative senescence. And thirdly, telomerase activation can reverse the downward spiral of the metabolic syndrome. So the first paradigm breaker would be that insulin and fat are always thought of as negative things when in fact they're not. They are good things. The reason is that, we evolved as these hunter-gatherers, and you don't see many heavy hunter-gatherers. Turns out that most of the things growing around are not edible, and that, things running around are not that easy to catch and eat. So the purpose of insulin is when your blood sugar goes up, you store it as fat for a rainy day. And this graph merely shows that if you have foods with a high glycemic index, which is a concept that was really popularized in the 70s by Dr. Atkins, in other words, sucrose, a high fructose corn syrup, these things get your blood sugar up real high and they're very fattening. Whereas, ironically, it's a little hard to absorb and digest fat, so fat is not even as fattening as carbs. So in order to keep your body in a non-toxic level of glucose, and diabetics are the ones that can't control as well, it has to store as insulin. So insulin and fat are good things. The transition from the Paleolithic to the Neolithic, the old rock to the new rock, think of pyramids. So I did a webinar and I kind of called out the food pyramid that they taught us in the old duck and cover and the old community service, like school education. So you shouldn't have a bunch of carbs, then vegetables. This whole thing was wrong, and since we did the webinar, the FDA or the USDA has abandoned that, which is nice to know. So the evolutionary food pyramid from the hunter-gatherer perspective, you can eat meat, veggies are good, and so that has changed finally. This is kind of a fun slide that you can pause and look at later in the replay, but everyone talks about Stone Age. So it turns out the Stone Age has three periods: Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic. And we started out as hunter-gatherers, but in the Neolithic revolution, sometime between 4,000 or 5,000 years ago, instead of having tribes, we had chiefdoms, villages, and mother goddesses, and this was because we were harvesting crops. And then there began the agro-business, the corn, the wheat, all those wonderful things, followed up by the Bronze Age, where civilization as we know it, urban centers rose up, ethnic gods, more like, that's self-explanatory. And then finally the Iron Age, when cities and empires were built and sanctioned state religion. So, you can talk about 2012 and all these whacked out theories of eschatology, but basically, we're probably entering into some kind of new age, even though that's a highly laden word. But it's an age of internet is the tools. We use social media, what's called cloud computing. All our information is stored elsewhere on servers. And the economy is one of ideas moving the world soul forward. We dwell in cyberspace, and this concept of memes, popularized by Dawkins, is something that's very interesting. So, whether you believe it or not, probably the focus will be more on individual human, and that's not even the final stage of man, probably. Another thing I like to debunk is that we are not what we eat. I mean, if we were what we eat, we'd all have to eat humans. And if we were what we eat, all vegetarians would turn into vegetables. It seems kind of silly, but in fact, it's true. We could go through all the biochemical things that we do in medical school. It's pointless. The point is that your body runs on quarters, and the quarters are ATP. The most common measure or unit of currency is the dollar bill, which we'll call acetyl-CoA. And all you need to know is here, proteins, we'll call them euros, can be converted into acetyl-CoA, get to quarters. Fats, acetyl-CoA, quarters. Carbs, acetyl-CoA, quarters. So we're running on quarters here. So this is just the citric acid cycle changes things. If you eat only carbs, you're going to make fats. If you eat only carbs, you're going to make proteins. It's all the same thing metabolically. That's what our bodies do. The big ones that we talk about are fat. Fat is like a Krugerrand. It's good. You store fat. You need it. You can make everything else with fat. The short term, like say your money fold or your wallet, the money in your pocket, let's call glycogen, and that's short term. People who run races and stuff, that's the energy source in muscles and liver, which is burned up pretty quickly. And the reason why little kids can't sleep through the night when they're born because their liver can't store glycogen. So let's go back. Very simple. Nutrition is very simple. Insulin moves glucose into cells. High glucose, insulin, save for a rainy day. So if it does it into fat cells, it makes fat. Into the liver and muscle, it makes glycogen. That's all you got to know. On the other side, when it's time to cash in, glucagon is the opposing hormone. And so that cashes in your savings. When you have a low blood sugar, the glucagon is released. It dissolves the glycogen, so you get glycogenolysis, the food stored in the liver, the billfold. And your low glucose will also cause destruction of fat. So the whole thing centers around adipocytes. So what are adipocytes? Adipocytes are fat cells. And just like every other cell, they come from progenitor stem cells. So it's something that we've talked about many times is that cells come from a queen bee, so the fat cells around can only be as good as the ancestor. The interesting fact is that somehow through cell communication, the number of cells is fixed. So rather than getting more fat cells when you get fat, the existing fat cells just become plumper. And there's a whole field which has yet to be invented in science, which kind of is more like entomology, the study of insects. So we really just don't know how cells organize themselves and communicate with each other. And that'll be an exciting thing to learn. So fat is an endocrine organ. And, of course, insulin is the tight glucose controller. Leptin is something people have talked about for a couple of decades now. It's the we're not hungry anymore hormone, and it's released by fat cells. So interestingly, when your sleep is messed up or you're depressed, the leptin is high. So being sleep-deprived, anxious, and depressed makes you hungry, makes you fat. You go for the Ben & Jerry's, you get more depressed, and it's not a good place to be. Interestingly, they discovered about 9 years ago a new hormone. Adiponectin is a hormone that says, hey, we're fat. So I don't want to go into the details, but it basically keeps you skinny. And yes, people are working on ways to turn on or supplement adiponectin to make you less fat. Ironically, it's suppressed in obese people. So despite having a lot of fat, the signal of we're fat, let's not make more fat, doesn't get communicated. So it's kind of like a cell or a person that doesn't know they're fat. They're in denial. That's what part of the syndrome of obesity. Just a key concept that we've come back to over and over again is that fat releases inflammatory modulators. Inflammation, as Dr. Mike West talked about in lecture 5 or podcast 5, sets up this, the DNA damage sets up this sense static state, and in particular, having obesity sets up these nasty cytokines, inflammation. as I do every week, we go through the literature, and if you just look at the dates of these articles, most of them are 2009, 2010. We're in the midst of a scientific revolution, and across the country and the world, people are publishing and getting real excited about the fact that this fundamental process of telomere shortening is related to their disease. And so people are fired up about this, but we've already been, if you want, experimenting on humans, on myself, for 4 years now. So this study shows that if you look at the fat cells, they have shorter telomeres in fat people and formerly fat people. So the whole metabolic syndrome did something to damage. Here, likewise, a high BMI or being really fat was inversely correlated with telomere length. So obesity accelerated the aging of the fat cells, although we could argue later that perhaps it's vice versa. Okay, this is the metabolic syndrome. Yeah? Big belly. So the metabolic syndrome is not really, in my opinion, a disease. It's kind of a description. There's a lot of things in the syndrome. The International Diabetes Federation, the World Health Organization, they make lists, and look at these lists to define metabolic syndrome. High triglyceride, raised blood pressure, high fasting glucose, BMI. This list doesn't have some of those things. It has other things, microalbuminuria, central obesity. This list over here, still other factors, hypertension. So if you can't agree on what it is, then it's probably not a thing, if that makes sense. So what is Oprah holding here with Dr. Oz? This is, it looks like a little lambskin. It's actually a curtain of fat. So draped across the transverse colon is this curtain of fat. And people who have actually operated know that this thing gets really big and long in obese people. This is where you store your fat. And most people don't realize that the fat is not necessarily in the skin. It's under the belly. It's in this drape. And that's what gives you the jolly old St. Nick belly. So interesting study here is that they looked at the fat in the subq, and they looked at the fat in the omentum. And specifically, they were looking at telomerase-positive cells, meaning progenitor cells that were actively using telomerase. So let's say stem cells in the omentum versus stem cells in the skin fat. And the omental fat cells reproduced slower, so they were prone to this dysfunctional sort of phenotype. Okay, so short telomeres are associated with metabolic syndrome. Yeah, they are. So they took 760 twin pairs, which means identical twins, I believe, and they looked at them. And if the one twin had kind of let themselves go and was fat, then lo and behold, they had higher insulin resistance, leptin, C-reactive protein, which is a function of, or an indicator of cellular damage, atherosclerosis, inversely correlated. So, short fat twin, you got metabolic syndrome, you got short telomeres. The evidence is starting to grow. All right. This is actually one of the more flattering pictures of me in 2003. I have a big gut there. And the reason I put 95 to 2007 is basically I spent most of my 30s about 200 to 210. In 2007, winter, I began T65, and 3 months later, still heavy, takes time to repair cells, but by a year's time, I had really lost about 20 pounds through no diet or exercise. And, you can just choose to believe that or not. It happens to be true. This is me 4 years later. I'm not a swimsuit model. Hey, I grant you that, but you can actually see my ribs. And I feel great. And again, the weight is off. In 2010, there was a period of about 9 months when I didn't take T65, and despite not exercising or dieting, it was pretty much impossible for me to gain weight. So that argues for a change in the cells, which we're seeing in other organs and which are the topics of many other of the webinar. These labs confirm the disappearance of metabolic syndrome after a year. Here's my high cholesterol at 222, and then afterwards, I think it's 1A7. I apologize for the reproduction. I had fatty liver, which is just fatty infiltration in the liver, LFT of 81 or liver function test down to normal. And next week we'll talk about male sexual function. My testosterone was low, 307, and it went up to almost 400 here. So one concept that I thought about was glucagon resistance. Everyone talks about insulin resistance. Well, there's only been one real publication on glucagon resistance in the last 20 years. It was popular in the 70s, but then people just dropped it for some groupthink reason. So glucagon, remember, is the one that when your blood sugar is low and you're going to melt away the fat for energy, well, yeah, it turns out that these dysfunctional fat cells are glucagon resistant, so they're not able to mobilize the fat in the way that they should. Interesting study. Folks that yo-yo diet, irrespective of their current weight or BMI, basically, if they had a history of yo-yo dieting, they had shorter telomeres. So that whole getting fat, getting skinny, depriving yourself, stress is not good for your telomeres. Here's proof that insulin cells, which are the beta cells of the pancreas, burn out, just like your cells in your retina or wherever. These things can only reproduce, and I say only kind of jokingly, a few billion times before accumulated errors start to catch up. So this study will shows that the beta cells of insulin type 2 diabetics just burn out. I mean, they've copied enough. There's no more functioning progenitor, and so like other diseases, it's just a burnout. Proof positive here that diabetics have shorter telomeres. Whether that's causal, I leave to you. But whenever you see a p-value of 1 in 0.0004, that means it's only a 1 in 10,000 chance that telomeres aren't in fact shorter in diabetics. We talked about last week Maria Blasco's paper where she gave TA65 to mice, and one of the components I didn't talk about was the clinical effect upon the mice. So basically what happened was they gave the mice TA65, and the younger mice, the 1-year-old mice, showed improved glucose tolerance, and that persisted both at 6 months and 12 months. Translation, these mice were fixed, like I was fixed. Older mice, not significant. So the take-home lesson would be it's easier to fix 30, 40, 50-year-old stem cells than it is to fix 60, 70, 80-year-old stem cells. So the concept I want to leave you with is that perhaps there's only one disease. At the core of it, cells, specifically stem cells, need to reproduce billions of times. I sound like Carl Sagan, billions. But literally, the stem cells do have to replicate in all plants, animals, and fungi, which leads to DNA damage at the ends of the chromosomes. That stops the cell from reproducing. It goes into this static state. It phones it in. It's not reproducing healthy copies, because to do so would to reproduce aneuploid or improper number of chromosomes. And then the cell tries to kill itself. Here's the ritual seppuku. So the cells are trying to die. If they can't die, you got, on the organ level, in the case of the beta cells of pancreas, you get diabetes. In the case of the brain, Alzheimer's. Arteries, high blood pressure. Atherosclerosis. The retina, macular degeneration. Blood cells, weak immunity. Stem cells, and I throw all cancers in here, when you get replicated senescence, DNA damage, apoptosis, failed apoptosis, you get, again, the Clark Kent becomes the Lex Luthor, and you get a super villain cell. Connective tissue, we're talking about arthritis, osteoporosis, and wrinkles. And in the gonads, menopause and the so-called andropause. All right, I'd like to go through just a few testimonials. The first will be Kathy, who's a 50-year-old mother of 3, and she lost 12 pounds in 3 weeks, which is not typical.
Okay, are you losing a lot of weight?
I
say 10, 12 pounds, something like that.
Louise, why are you losing so much weight?
I'm changing the way I'm eating, and I just feel better.
Did you have 12 pounds to lose? You didn't strike me as a heavy person.
Oh, I think I did. I'm kind of small-boned, and, it's just better for me just with that whole fibromyalgia thing that they put on me,
Yeah.
So it's like it's just easier to get around if I have, a certain weight, and I noticed that, I didn't have that. I was a good 15 pounds, maybe 20 pounds over.
So what is it? Are you doing a lot of cardio or just eating less calories, or both?
A little both, actually, yeah. It's really kind of hard. Like you said at the get-go, it's sometimes hard to know what came first, the chicken or the egg, because, I have been trying to lose weight and walking, but it is definitely working.
Yeah, and I call it the upward spiral. There's a downward spiral. Opposite, right? So you start eating better, feeling better, losing weight, taking care of yourself, more energy, and you start going better and better. Everyone wonders, is this placebo? But who cares as long as you're in the upward spiral, right?
There you go, because before it was not so easy to get to this place, and now it is.
Exactly.
So there is something behind all that,
Okay, I'm going to do a video now, which is really quite fun. Okay, let's listen to what Sue had to say earlier this week. Is a professional golfer who has been taking T65 for 6 months and is ready to tear it up at age 65. Go and win some tournaments. His back pain got a lot better, as you can hear in podcast 7, I believe. But Sue also lost 18 pounds, and she deserves all credit for getting to that place. But let's hear what her journey was like. And she came in, I think, on Monday to talk to us. We're here with Ray and Sue Carrasco. So, how long has it been that you've been taking T65?
Well, it's been about 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
I think we talked about it in December, yeah.
Now, Sue, did you go on right away, or did you wait?
I did.
Okay.
I think about the very same day.
And so you're taking one capsule?
One.
Okay. At night now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what have you noticed?
I think for me, the very first thing that I noticed, and pretty quickly, was my sleep was like solid through the night. But I do have to get up like once or twice a night to go to the bathroom, and I noticed I went right back to sleep, which hadn't happened that often. I've never been a bad sleeper, but definitely this I could notice a change. And the other thing that I really noticed all the time still is used to be when I'd get up in the night to go to the bathroom, my joints would be stiff and achy kind of, and it kind of hobbled the bathroom. I don't feel any of those knee joint problems in the middle of the night like I did. So those are the two things that have really been significant, and right away they were noticeable.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. In the first 3 weeks, the sleep and some of the creakier joints can just get better. Yeah. And then it's a gradual improvement on top of that, I think. But the weight, tell us about what happened with that.
Well, I went to my internist last November, and I weighed 157, which is probably the highest I've ever weighed. And as a teacher, there's all those donuts in the staff lounge, there's all that pressure, and just from stress. So I had great parents who would bring in coffee and a cookie once a week, so I couldn't refuse. But I did have to lose weight. I mean, I didn't feel good being that heavy. Also had the mindset. I had decided I have to lose this weight. No going back on it. So for the first month, I did the points with Weight Watchers, and after that, I'm just not a point person. But I understand what I have to do.
Had you ever done that, Weight Watchers?
This was my third time.
Okay.
And this time I stayed on the longest, but this was also the easiest. I think the mind thing, like making the decision, I don't get nearly as hungry. My portions are smaller.
We're finding out that sleep, right,
has a big effect on appetite. So if you sleep better, the appetite is less.
Okay.
Which is nice. But what about the exercise component? How did that change?
When I stopped teaching last June, when I retired, I decided I was going to go to the gym as often as possible. So I have been daily. The only day I don't go is Sunday. But what's happened, I think, is that I have become more energetic. Probably even since taking TA65, more energetic. I've just recently added weights. I'm doing a strength. What do you call it? Strengthening class. So I've added on the barbells. A few times I can even do 2 back-to-back classes. Nice. Of the weightlifting and then the aerobics kind of thing.
So last year, with the weight makes a big difference. But how were the workouts before doing TA65? Could you go as hard or?
No. No, and never had I. Yeah, I just feel almost compelled. It's almost sort of an obsession to go to the gym and work out, and it just makes me feel good. And also, I realize by doing that, I will help to keep the weight off. Right,
but it feels good. It feels good. Do you get sore after working out? Because Ray said a lot of my patients say what used to be kind of like a hangover from stretching and straining and working out, you don't really get that sore.
I don't get sore anymore because I go every day, and this is the first time in forever that my shoes wore out faster than ever before. In fact, they didn't give me the support, and I hurt my foot one day because it wasn't, so I threw those shoes away right away.
You're wearing through your shoes.
Yeah.
So that's the downside of getting younger. You got to buy more shoes. Well, Ray also is very. So, how old are you guys, by the way?
I'll be 65 in August, and Ray's
so we're both
6 months
approaching
behind
65.
me.
Oh, okay. So you guys were in the same class at Garden Grove High School, though. Okay.
Yep.
But he was just a baby.
Childhood.
He was 6.
Sweetheart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a little younger, but
6 months. It's
6
okay.
months.
You're not a cradle robber if you're in the same 6
I
months.
never considered myself that until this term cougar came along.
Funny.
So tell us about how you lost weight and what the status over what time and.
I'd say right now I'm between 230 and 235, but I think I topped out because there's a point where you stop weighing yourself. I think I probably topped out around 265, and I was just getting into shape again when I started taking TA65 April 28th, or about April 25th, I think. And if I hadn't started taking it, I probably would have started slowly, losing the urge to exercise. But the next day, I noticed a recovery that was much faster. Like within a half hour to an hour, I felt like I didn't feel like I had an intense workout. And then the day after sleeping, it was like I hadn't worked out the day before at all, and I was able to go out and do another hard workout. And it's been pretty consistent, about 5 pounds every 3 weeks, which is perfect. And,
wow, that's amazing. So you're not the biggest loser yet, but 30 pounds in a month and a half, that's not bad.
It's remarkable in the sense that I've slowly started to let all of my bad habits creep back in. One of the ways that the first few pounds came off was I was religiously avoiding anything with sugar or alcohol. Now I'm back to about 3 drinks a week. I'm having the occasional soda or juice or something, but it's the thing I notice more than anything is my athletic performance is quickly increasing. I'm under an 8-minute mile now in my workouts, whereas prior to taking TA65, I was at about 11 minutes.
And you deserve all credit for doing the work, but the fact is, as you so well described, you get that hangover. It's hard to get yourself to the gym if you know you're going to pay for it, right?
Right.
Okay, do you have anything else you want to say about weight loss in particular? How's the belly fat issue?
It's interesting. That's the thing I was watching the most, but I looked in the mirror the other day, and my face is now back to the gaunt self that people recognize, and I look much younger, obviously, with a thinner face, and I think that it's disappearing. The belly fat is, I would say, I've lost 2 pant sizes. I'm now wearing. I basically, rather than buy all new clothes, what I do is I just bought new belts. I'm waiting until I'm down to.
I know. I got this belt wrapping around to my butt too. I know. Well, people ask me if there are negative side effects of TA65, and there's you have to buy new shoes, new belts, and pay probably more taxes over the course of a lifetime. So,
well, the biggest source of weight loss, of course, is my wallet is much lighter.
Wow.
I start the conversation now when people compliment me on my weight. I said, well, I'm on a new expensive regimen, and then after that, that sort of tempers their interest very quickly. I don't have to go into the full details about how TA65
it's
works.
funny because whenever people I haven't seen see me, they go, "Oh, what's your secret?" And I say, "Oh, there's a pill that makes people younger," and they laugh, and that's it. I mean, because. But as one caller mentioned at the very beginning of the webinar, so what price would you put on your life? What's it worth to you to be 10, 15, 20 years younger? It's kind of hard to put a number on that. So anyway, I think it's been life-changing for me, and from what you're saying, it sounds like it's starting to be for you.
Well, my biggest concern is I want to stay out of harm's way in terms of getting into a doctor's office for any of those things that most of the people I know as they age, they start going in for more and more things. Yeah. And eventually the doctors find a way to kill them, and so I do my best.
Right, we mentioned iatrogenic imperfecta. Okay, well, I'm going to open it up to other questions now. Do you have any parting comments?
No, I'm good.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
Good.
All right, Jeff asked a question in the chat box, which you can't see maybe, but it says, when you did your survey back in May, not all respondents reported weight loss. Do you have a theory why? Yes, I do, Jeff, and thank you for the question. TA65 is not a miracle. It's just magic. And what I mean by that is it's using your own cells to do what your cells need to repair, which is not something that we invented. It's present in the evolutionary sense ever since the first cell was made from circular DNA. So stop to ponder that. Every single living thing needs to protect its linear chromosomes, and every single thing uses telomerase. So all we're claiming is that this TA65 has been proven to activate your normal healing. So when you talk about a panacea, it's got a negative connotation, obviously, because people don't think there is a cure for everything. When in fact, this is nature's panacea. All the stem cells are trying to repair themselves, and this goes to where it's needed. So basically, not everybody has the same stuff to fix. Some people gain weight because they're too thin. I have a 90-year-old German patient who's gaining weight. So, there's no effect of TA65. It doesn't do anything. It's only your body stem cells that are healing themselves. So if you have good eyes, your vision's not going to get better. If you're fat, you'll get skinny. If you're skinny, you'll get fat. Whatever it is for your body to get younger and less damaged, healthier, that's what it's going to do. So, snake oil, definite negative connotation, but we need to change the connotation of panacea, because it is a panacea. So, I just had this debate with my wife the other night. She said, wow, you must be dieting or exercising. She takes it, and yet there's still that skepticism, and you'll never lose that. People experiencing life-changing things, they still kind of go, yeah, is this real? So that's just part of the journey. But, yeah, it's interesting during that 9 months where I wasn't taking it, could not gain weight. So in case you missed it, the overall argument is that DNA replication causes aging in these omental fat cells, and that gives you a big gut, and then the whole downward spiral of metabolic syndrome ensues. So aging causes the gut by damage probably to those adipocyte stem cells, those progenitors. Oh, I forgot to tell you, here's a kid on carbs, soda, high fructose corn syrup. Hey, guess what? He makes a lot of fat. Here's some Inuit people, also known as Eskimos. There's no fruits and vegetables up there, so they eat animals, whale blubber, whatever, baby seals. And so they eat the fat, they make the carbs and the protein. They have quarters to run the machine, and there's vitamins in some animals, and they make do. Hi, Alex. It's Dr. Parr. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Oh, fabulous.
I'm 69, and I've been taking it since March, and I take 4 of them a day. And I have not gained the weight back that I lost last summer, and that is an amazing thing.
Good. And how, in general, do you feel well otherwise?
I feel well. I feel more energetic. I can walk up a hill way better, faster, without, getting out of breath. I'm not sure I see any other differences. I feel better. I feel younger.
Yeah. Are you taking it the way I instructed you to at night, or are you taking it during the day?
I take it at night after I haven't eaten.
Oh, perfect. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Because I know there are a lot of people who've been mail ordering it for months or years and maybe not having as much of an effect. And as we go along and talk to the people, we're learning little tricks to enhance the absorption. And maybe people don't realize that they can order, the price is fixed, but they can order from us. And as a bonus, you always have a doctor you can speak to, and we'll follow you individually. Because it's strong stuff, but A, you don't want to just poop it out and not absorb it, and B, you need to understand what the changes are, good or bad.
I was curious about this leptin and adiponectin or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't understand exactly how it all fits together.
Yeah, nobody really does, and there's not much out there in the research, but it's a hormone that the fat cells, that it's a missing link, so to speak. So when you got enough fat cells, it sends out a signal saying, hey, no more fat cells here, we're done. And so, of course, drug companies are looking at ways to either stimulate the signal or the response or what have you. But it seems to be a major, major player in controlling your body weight.
Oompa, loompa, doompa-dee-da. If you're not greedy, you will go far. You will live in happiness too, like the Oompa, Oompa, loompa, oompa-dee-doo.
My son is 46, and about a year or so ago, he started, or maybe 2 years ago, he got this enormous belly. And I guess his father, who we haven't seen in years, but he seems to have gotten that same thing. He looks more like a balloon than a person. And I'm just wondering, is it hopeless or
No, I mean, for me, it took a year, as you could see from the pictures, but the only explanation for why I didn't gain weight when I wasn't taking T65 was that there had been some change in the responsiveness of the adipocytes, right? They're not glucagon or insulin resistant. They're not releasing the same cytokines. They're healthier, younger cells, and that can be gotten in several ways. You can kill off a bad queen bee. You can rehabilitate her genetics so she's better. But it's generally not the drones, the non-telomerase positive cells. There's no effect upon those from TA65. So we're really writing into the DNA a younger state. So if you take it and you stop taking it, the effect in certain organs is transient and goes away, i.e. sleep, skin. But the stuff that you've rewritten into your DNA and the stem cells is a permanent benefit. So we look at Ray and Sue. They're whatever you want to call it, 15, 20 years younger, and they'll remain 15 or 20 years younger and start going down the escalator of aging from there. So it's a permanent benefit. Question from Martin. I have been taking TA65 for 4 months, and my wife has just started. We've been buying it elsewhere, but we'll shift future orders to you. Thanks for your support. Oh, thank you, Martin. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, the price is fixed by the company, so you're really not saving any money. It's a level playing field. And so why not have somebody follow your medical history? I learn from you guys, and hopefully vice versa, and I think it's a good way to go. But thank you. Yeah, we'll look for your call. We have a couple of Martins, so I'm not sure if it's going to be too confusing to add a third, but we'll take on that burden, I think. Okay, everybody, thanks for calling in and listening in. This is Dr. Ed Park from Recharge Biomedical, and we're signing off. Take care. Have a good day.
I've got a perfect puzzle for you. Oompa, loompa, doompa-dee-dee. If you are wise, you'll listen to me.
What do you get when you guzzle down sweets?
Eating as much as an elephant eats.
What are you at, getting terribly fat?
What do you think will come of that? I don't like the look of it. Oompa, loompa, doompa-dee-da. If you're not greedy, you will go far. You will live in happiness too. Like the Oompa, loompa, doompa-dee-doo. Doompa-dee-doo.